Hey, welcome back to Burnt Wood Workshop. I'm Al, and today we're going to discuss the hot mess that is my shop. In my shop, I've got little trays full of assorted hardware that I don't have a place for, just stuff all over the place. Bags of screws. So what I did was I designed this to keep everything in. And we're going to go over some organizational tips, some tips for getting your stuff in and out of them easier, and how we made it. Okay, so in MakerCase, we're going to use the grid divided box. And you can do custom divided boxes, so you could do custom drawers. You could set this up however you want. I'm just going with a standard grid divided box right now. And I've already laid it out. So this is our box. And what we did was, the width of it is 16 inches. Because they look at this laying flat, the height for us is actually the depth. And then the depth is actually the height. So this is 10, 16, 4 inches deep. We went with 5 rows across, 5 rows down. And we went with 1/4 inch material, but I actually went with Home Depot plywood. So in mine, I actually changed it to 0.226 because that's what my calipers read for the Home Depot plywood. And then we're going by the outside measurement, or you could go by the inside measurement, and that would change the size of the boxes. And then on this part here, we're going with finger joint, which means that this whole thing's going to be held together with finger joints. And with this little bar here, you can select how many fingers you want on it. So there's our box there. Then, once we get this built, we're going to want to measure what these inside boxes are. And on that, we're going to go back to just a standard box. Our drawer is going to be wide. It's going to be 2.865 wide, 1.659 or 1.65 high, and it's going to be 3.865 deep. So that's our box right there. That's our drawer. And that's done in 1/8 inch plywood. And it's going to be the outside dimensions and set our finger joints for what we want. And now we're ready to cut all this out on our S1 laser, or whatever laser you happen to have. Okay, this is our organizer box. And what I did was I started out with a 16 inch wide by 10 inch tall by 4 inch deep box. But on this, the way it shows up is the 16 inches your width. The 4 inch deep is going to be your height. And then your depth is actually going to be this measurement. That's going to be your height if you're looking at it this way. So, and these are not 10, 16, and 4 because when I designed this, I forgot to change the thickness, and it was set for 1/8 inch. And I'm using Home Depot plywood, which is 0.22 instead of 0.24 like a 1/4 inch would be. Or 2.5, I mean. Yeah, 2.5. So on here, then they actually have it as 0.236 to be more accurate on this. But these are the measurements they have. You can do custom. So you could set this for what I did for my thickness by measuring it with my caliper. And then your dimensions are going to be the outside dimensions, so that when I change that 1/8 inch to this measure, the different thickness, it changed that outside dimension. That's why that's off. And then this is an open box. We don't want a closed box, so we don't want a lid on it because this is an organizer. Now you could make a lid for this, or if you subscribe, you have some other options in here. I'll show you in a second. Then you get your finger joints, and you can select, there's your finger joints, like that. You can select how wide those are, or how many or how few there are. Okay, so that's that. Now, With the subscription, you get a little more access to stuff. But this is our box right here. If you wanted to make this something that you could put stuff in, you could make a sliding box lid for it. Then you could do some messing around with that. That's in the Pro if you're subscribed like I am. And you can get custom divided boxes through the subscription. So that's this part of the design. Okay, so when you bring this in, I've already brought this in here. So, all right, so when you bring this program in, you're going to go File, Import Image. You're going to pick your box. This is I named it. It's going to come up box whatever when you download it. I named it Organizer Box, and I'll change that to 10 by 16. When you download it, do not scale it to fit your canvas. Hit Display Original Size. And now you're going to end up with all your pieces. And you can get these with tags on them to say what parts they are. I didn't do that on this one, but you just ungroup it, and there all your pieces are separately. Now, what I did, we're going to undo this because I already did this. What I did was, this is your base. That's going to be basically 10.2 by 16.2. That's your back. And then I broke down all those pieces onto another board. So these ones here, the whole thing is going to be just shy of 12 inches, so we can do it with the S1 laser, 16.02. So the piece you're going to have to be a little bit over 16 feet. 16 inches. And then I broke it down into another page, and it fit on four, say, probably 17-inch sheets with one piece left over, which I will just pick up a scrap somewhere. And I mean, I can find a 10 by 3, 4-inch scrap. So that's not that hard to find. So these are all of them. I marked them out as number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. And these are all our boards. And we're going to run those and we're going to assemble it. So when I cut my plywood from Home Depot, what I do is I cut it 12 inches by 16 and a half. So that, as you can see, this 16 was a little over, so it comes right to it, so it fits right in here. And I got this set up right at the edge, so it fits exactly. And not a whole lot of scrap, as you can see. There's not a lot of waste on this. Just that right there. So once you've got everything cut out, you glue it up with some wood glue, and you clamp it. And if you don't have a ton of clamps, and you got a little bit of bowing in the sides, just take some masking tape. So this is what our organizer looks like once we've glued the whole carcass together.
And then take a damp cloth and wipe the excess glue out of the inside. The glue on the outside, if there's spots, you can sand it off, but in the inside, it's a lot more difficult in the corners. So wipe that off with a damp cloth. Yeah, all this glue on the inside here, you want to just wipe that out real quick. Just so you don't have lumps that stop your other pieces from going in.
So these are our drawers, and the first time I designed them off of the measurement of the top row, and the middle row is different. So I've modified these so that all of these are the size of the middle row, so they'll fit in the top or the middle row. And then these are the tag holders, and this will fit on a 12 by 12 sheet. I use about 10 1/8-inch sheets to make all the drawers and tags. If you didn't make the tags, you could save some sheets on that, laying things out different, but I used about 10 12 by 12 sheets to make this.
Okay, so now that we're done with all of our laser cutting, this isn't all of them, this is a good percentage of them. I think I've got 4 already built. Take your handy dandy glue bottle. What I do is I put my woodworking glue in this. That way it's a little easier to direct. And we're going to take our first set. And not that it matters, but I try to make the nicest parts to the outside. This is Home Depot 1/8-inch plywood. And what I do is I rip these down to 12-inch strips, and then I cut them in 12 and a half, 16 and a half, and 19 and a half. That way it gives me a full bed piece for doing like my curved lights. It gives me 12 by 12s for 12-inch stuff. And I go a little over so I have a little room. But that works out really nice. Now on these, we're just going to take our glue. We're going to just run a little bead. Doesn't have to be a ton. It's a small joint, but just run a little bead around there. And then just dot these up. Like that. Oh, missed one. Yeah, probably not necessary anyway, but then you take your... Now I'm doing this on parchment paper, so I don't want to get glue all over my workspace, because that's a pain. Alright. So there's our box, all glued up. I'm going to take some handy dandy masking tape. And then you just tape it. Pull it tight. Yeah, see, you definitely want to tape it. I'm going to take this end, put it on here, push it together. And then our bottom. And before you put the bottom on, if you got a bunch of excess glue kicking out the bottom, just take a damp cloth, just wipe that excess glue off. I usually keep a little bucket of water handy just to dip the paper towel in to wipe this off, and wipe your space off too. Keep everything cleaned up nice so you don't get glue all over everything. Just gonna take a damp cloth and wipe the outside and get our bottom glue taped down. Well, you can't tape the tape while it's wet. Give it a second to dry. But also, if you take the glue on the inside, if you take a sponge on a skewer, you can wipe a lot of that up. Just don't poke yourself in the eye with the skewer. And that piece of sponge is a little big, but it cleans up most of the glue pretty decent. I think I would make it a little bit smaller. I'll trim it down some. But now this should be hopefully dry enough to tape. And actually, if we tape across from the dry side across, it'll be fine. And then we'll hit it across this way. And there's our first box all made up. We just want to wipe the glue off of here somewhat. Try to keep it neat. And grab our next box. All the pieces are set up just like that. And if you go fast enough, you can try to reduce the amount of glue you put down so you don't have as much weeping out. Dab everything up nice. And there's our box. And as you can see, a lot less glue weeped out, which makes it easier to tape it. The nice thing about the tape is you don't have to have as many clamps as it would take to do this job, because that would require a lot more clamps than I've got. And on this end, I should have gripped that longer so that I could have gone all the way, but it's all right, this will work. And then we'll do the next one that way. Stick it right on top. And let's face it, the masking tape is a lot cheaper than what it would cost to buy that many clamps. spots where there's lumps, you can just kind of hit the other end with it. And some of the sponge come off on it. Something else. This may not be the greatest idea, which is something I thought of. Needs some work, I think. Maybe a less ratty sponge. Maybe trim the sponge down. Something to think about. If you got a better idea, leave it in the comments. I'd appreciate the input. Some of these are actually fairly nice on both sides, so it's kind of hard to tell, but it doesn't really matter anyway. The box is going to be hidden, but it's nice to have something that looks nice all the way around. Zip our glue across. And I use CA glue for most stuff, but the sheer volume of gluing on this, CA glue would get kind of expensive, and wood glue is fairly cheap in comparison. And in a second here, I'll show you the boxes that I did and show you how strong they are with the wood glue done this way. There we go. There's another box. I got that partial piece out, so I might as well use it. Oh, that side was coming apart. Get that back in place. Just make sure you get all your fingers set when you actually stick your tape down. So what I try and do is I try to squeeze it together before I pull it around the side. So you just lay it across the top, push the side in, push the side in, and tape. There's 3 boxes taped up. And then on the fronts, I assembled these with super glue, and then I glue them to the front when they're dry. I'll show you that next. So gluing these together with CA glue, this little tube comes with the CA glue, and I found it to be a little bit, it clogs up constantly. So I bought these, and this is my first time trying it, so we'll see what happens. It has a metal tip, supposed to not clog as much. It comes with a little funnel and a bunch of different tips. Even comes with a little angled tiny tip for applying into tight spaces. So I don't know how well it's going to work, but we're going to try it. Well, so far looks good. We just stick our pieces together. Make sure you get them lined up nice. And you can spray some of the activator on it if you'd like. But we've got a lot of these to do too. Then once our drawers dry up, I'll show you how to apply. These just get glued right to the front of the drawer. And I'm going to do this for a little while, and then I'm going to go back to doing this with my music on, because working without music is a lot less fun. But we got a few of these done. There's a lot of gluing on this. As you can see, it goes fairly fast though. I do like that applicator. It seems to be working pretty nice. Now, I don't know on storage if you just, I don't know, we'll see. We'll find out how well it holds. I don't know if there's I know there's little caps and all kinds of stuff that come with this. But I was just anxious to try it, so we just... When I say we most of the time, it's me, because I work up here by myself most of the time. My grandson helps actually quite a bit. He comes up and works with me. My grandson Wyatt, he comes up and helps. But a lot of times I'm up here by myself doing stuff. Nice to have somebody up to help you though. So once you've got everything cut out, you glue it up with some wood glue and you clamp it. And if you don't have a ton of clamps and you got a little bit of bowing in the sides, just take some masking tape, catch the spots where it's bowing, masking tape those up, and then take a damp cloth and wipe the excess glue out of the inside. The glue on the outside, if there's spots, you can sand it off, but in the inside, it's a lot more difficult in the corners. So wipe that off with a damp cloth. So when you're doing something like this, always make sure you check your measurements. I made an assumption that this would create all the spaces on these boxes even, but I got the top row done and they fit. I went to put this box in and these don't fit. Bottom row fits and the top row fits perfect, but the middle does not, and I've already made all my boxes. So check before you make all your boxes, or just make one for each row and check it. Now I've got to go out on the table saw and rip all these boxes down to fit. So when you run these through the table saw, I ran them through 2 passes with the blade about halfway through, a little over halfway through. If you go nice and slow, they cut pretty nice, but if you try to rush things, they don't tend to like that with the plywood. So just go slow and you'll end up with a better cut. It's easy enough to sand up, but better to go slow than make that mistake. Okay, to put our drawer front together, we want to glue our spacer to the front. Okay, so you put your glue on there, put your face on, and make sure you get it lined up nice. And you can spray this with some of the activator, which sometimes works a little bit better, nice and solid. Now, when we glue this part onto this, I left some excess on the sides so that when the drawer shuts, it covers the carcass a little bit. So when you glue these on, glue it from this part. Don't glue it on the drawer fit on the tag holder, but on this. So you want to just glue right along all of the joints, like that. Just glue along the joints. And then you want to situate the bottom of this even with the bottom of the drawer. And then just take this and slide it until you can't see. When you slide it so you can't see any of the glue joints, your drawer is pretty well set. And you want it even with the bottom. And then if you want to give it a little squirt with activator, there's your drawer. Okay, so you've got your drawer. You have these corners. You get your hardware in there. Sometimes it gets in the corners, it's hard to get out. So what I thought of was taking a piece of cardstock that we used for our fronts and taking this cardstock and sticking it in here, something like that. And mark it. And cut it off to that line. Well, if I can cut straight. There we go. And then just take some glue, put it on both those edges. A little tricky getting the first part in. I don't want glue all over everything. Basically, slide that down in like that. And then, one of the cheapest clamps you can get, throw some clothespins on it. Well, boy, I'm telling you what, bull in a china shop. Okay, so there's our little curved drawer spot, and we'll see how that works in a few minutes. So you get your hardware. One of the things you can do is just take the box, the package, if it came with a label of any kind, it's useful. Just hack it up. bit tall, so we'll just trim it to right there. And just drop the label that came with the screws on there, and you've got an idea of what's in it. And with our little curved drawer with these little tiny screws, just slide them right up the side. They're not stuck in the corner. So that was one of my ideas. Hope it helps you out. So what do you think? Was it worth the effort and the materials to make this? I think so. I went through 5 sheets of 1/4 inch plywood that was cut 12 inches by a little over 16 inches. 16 and a half is what I cut them. The design is about 16 and a quarter, so you got to have at least 16 and a quarter. I went through about 10 sheets of 1/8 inch plywood to make all the drawers and the tag holders. You could make the drawers and put poles on them without the tag holders. You could do it however you want. But I thought the tag holders were kind of handy. Makes it a lot easier. And I want to give a couple last comments. This glue tube worked really good. I keep forgetting to wipe it off. That's probably why it clogged up on me, and I left it open a couple times. So, still pretty happy with this. Another tool, I got this, I've had this since I was in high school, I think. It's a Craftsman, made in USA set of cutters, but they still make these, and you can get, I'll leave the link on Amazon for them. But these are great, because if you don't have a saw, and if you're like me, you've got pieces like this all over the place that you don't really want to store all of it. So you just take these, snip off what you don't want. That's 1/8 inch. This is 1/4 inch. Cut 1/4 inch. Then you don't have to bring a saw in, bunch of sawdust and everything. But you want to save this little piece here. There's a piece. You have to save all the stuff. Comes in handy. I'll leave a link. And I've got stuff coming up. I'm going to be doing some, making some stencils with the M1 Ultra, and I'll be going over some settings on that because I couldn't find the settings I wanted, so I'm going to clue you in on some of the settings for some of this stuff and how to set up testing and stuff like that. So if you liked my video, give me a thumbs up, leave a comment if you have any questions or if you think this was worth doing, and subscribe if you'd like to see more. I got a lot more coming up.